Chicago.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Bridging Chicago. I'm Ross Murphy, your host for today's episode. Be sure to connect with us on YouTube or Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, where our handle is Bridging Chicago. Today I'm joined by Dan Weiss, the owner of Dollop Coffee, a coffee shop that has 19 locations around the city of Chicago. Dan, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So, Dan, what brought you to Chicago?
Born and raised, grew up in Rogers Park.
Wonderful.
So my parents,
Parents brought
they
you.
did it. Yeah, it was their fault. Yeah.
And what about the city has made you want to stay over the years?
So that's a great question. In the summer and the spring, we get sort of, we sort of get hypnotized by like how beautiful Chicago can be, how it feels, and then in the winter every year, if you've been here for your whole life, you're just like, how did I stay here? No matter what, it's unavoidable. There's this yin and yang of the city. But I think overall, I've done a bunch of traveling, and like, there's only a few cities that really compare. At the end of the day, it's like Chicago it kind of does have it all. And so it's kept me here this far.
Yeah, you're right. The winters can be a little rough, but summers, spring, fall, they make up for it for sure. Yeah. And so we know Chicago loves its neighborhoods. Can you tell me what you loved about Rogers Park and what made it unique? Great place to start Dollop.
So the first Dollop location was actually in Uptown, which is just about 10 minutes from Rogers Park. In 2005, the original Dollop location opened. Two of my friends at the time, I introduced them actually to open it, and they cared about it, but they didn't love it, and they had other jobs. And I was at the time I was a full-time musician, and I needed something to sort of ground me and sort of a more serious, like when I'm in town, I need a job. I was touring mostly at the time.
Okay.
And I found an opportunity in 2011 to acquire the shop from them, and took it over then. So I was in love with coffee though, since I was a kid.
Sure.
I grew up sitting in coffee shops, writing in coffee shops, just the community aspect and the culture and the vibrance of coffee, how it allows us to socialize. It brought me to coffee. And so when I had the opportunity to step in and acquire Dollop, I sort of never looked back from that.
Ran with it.
From that moment, yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. You've grown it to 19 coffee shops at this point. It's pretty amazing.
It's pretty strange when you say that out loud. Yeah. It's hard to believe.
I feel like I see you guys everywhere when I'm just walking around.
Yeah, we've grown, and I love the business. I love opening up in these different neighborhoods and getting to learn about them. We design each of our shops is different based on where we are. So if we open one in Rogers Park or in Evanston or in downtown, it's going to look like it belongs where it belongs. And we do that to because we know our place and we want to be part of the community. We don't want to dictate how a cafe should be in a neighborhood. We want to become the neighborhood and learn from the neighborhood.
Yeah, so you're big, but you're also connected to your individual neighborhoods that you guys are a part of.
Certainly.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, I want to go back and ask you about music, because we've heard that there are definite benefits to kids when being involved in music. When you were growing up, did you feel like, or looking back on your childhood, do you feel like music helps you become who you are today?
Yeah, I do. I don't know how everybody looks at music, but for me personally, it got me through. Didn't get me through, but it brought me joy and made me start thinking about culture and art. I think from when I was a kid, I know everyone's affected differently, but for me, I can't imagine where I would be without finding music when I was a kid and just closing my door and diving into art in that capacity.
Yeah, just jamming out. getting used. That's awesome. What kind of music did you grow up like playing and being a part of?
Mostly when I was, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so mostly hip hop and rock from when I was a kid.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Do you still practicing at all, or like do you still?
Yeah, I still do it. I still write and record. I can't tour as much because I have 4 kids, which is
and a business
and multiple businesses. Yeah, yeah. So it's tough, but I still do. It's still a very important part of my life and a big outlet for me still. It's still like my number one way of how I express myself to this day.
Yeah.
So, but now it's just in my car when I have like 10 minutes of just jot something down rather than, making a whole day or night of it like when I was younger.
Yeah, absolutely. It's awesome that you're still practicing, right? You never let the passion die.
Yeah, I've had to learn to be like prolific and quick about expressing myself because no one cares anymore. It's all about the kids and the businesses now. So
Sure.
If I want to take care of myself or do any self-care with writing, it's just get it out while you can, while you have a few minutes, and then open the door and get back to work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unfortunately, but
that's wonderful though.
Yeah.
When you were thinking about starting Dollop, what scared you about being an entrepreneur? I know you didn't start it necessarily, but you bought it in its infancy. What scared you about being an entrepreneur, and what kind of personality does it take to be that type of person?
So there are certain things, so I have anxiety, I probably have an anxiety disorder like many people do. It doesn't sort of come up and manufacture itself in business and in coffee. Like it's never been, I've never been afraid to try a new location or, do a campaign or hire this person. That's not really what I mean, it's not how how it shows its unfortunate, side. So for me, business and growth, it was just like, let's do this. Like there weren't enough coffee shops. It was 2011. It wasn't like it is now. It wasn't a saturated market at all. There was only a few real players in the Chicago coffee scene at that time. There was Intelligentsia and Metropolis, and there was a few others that were just starting, but it just wasn't like it was just essentially Starbucks, and the mom and pops were really small. So I saw a hole and just said, let's go, let's dive in.
Yeah.
And I'm able to, just like with my music, I'm able to be very confident and sort of, to be honest, that's sort of the best version of myself.
Okay.
When it comes to ambition.
Yeah.
And that is so, I don't doubt in terms of like of that drive.
That's interesting. You're just born to be an entrepreneur in some ways, right?
Maybe it's got its blessings and its curses, though. I mean, my wife does not like that about me. That I'll go and I'll try. It's like, hey, slow down, settle down, see, smell the roses. But that's kind of how I'm built. For better or for worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, what sorts of personality traits has being an entrepreneur brought out in you, I guess, that makes you see future entrepreneurs can, have it see in themselves to give them the confidence to do that sort of work?
Well, I mean, if you're going to put money and time and resources or other people's money and time and resources into something, you have to sort of, you need to push somewhat blindly once you commit. You have to, because you can't overthink it. You don't have time. When the clock starts ticking, when you're doing business, it's like you got to go, you got to move, and you have to just proceed full throttle into what you believe in, or you will probably find a way to fail. And it's very easy to fail. Statistically, we're all born to fail, apparently, right? In terms of business. Mm-hmm. So it's not the time or the place to overthink or to dwell or to let yourself drown. Mm-hmm. So either do it or don't. That's my thing. It's like when you decide you're going to do it, when it's time to commit, you got to go.
Yeah.
You got to go.
You can't be halfway committed.
Absolutely not. No.
It's just not going to work.
You can be halfway committed until you commit.
Okay. Interesting. So you mentioned anxiety, and we know that that's something that many people are dealing with, but mental health is being seen as more important now than before. Do you think that's something that people should continue to focus on and should find a way to talk about? Just mental health?
Definitely. I mean, so we have probably, let's say just roughly 150 plus employees at Dollop. And the moment anybody comes to a manager or to me and says, something's not going right for me. I need a break. I need a minute. I need a day off. I mean, how can you ignore that? Like, how can you? So I think what we've as you know, society has dictated. You know, I think it's very positive that people are starting to be more broadly accepting of like being open about your mental health challenges. I think when you have to hide it from your boss or your partner, I think that's when it's just super easy to then sort of let it build up, and just it sounds simple when I think it and say it, but you can't really how can you be your best you if you're not yourself? Mm-hmm. So, you know, for me and for within our company, you know, we're really open about it. I understand that in some fields you might not have the luxury of taking taking a break, but I like what I do because of that. I like that we all, you know, the people that work in coffee have the they can come to work, and the job it's not that serious. I mean, we're serving coffee and making people happy. It's a hospitality job. You know, you shouldn't be that stressed out about making coffee. Yeah. So we're super supportive of that. And I think, you know, my dad is a psychologist, and so it's never there was too much sharing, growing up. But now, as I'm older and as I have kids, it's really important to stop, talk about it, and take time. I mean, there's no rush. It's super important.
Yeah, it is, and it's interesting. We were just talking about how you got to be fully committed to growing a business and whatnot. But like, if you or one of your employees are hampered by some sort of mental health challenge or emergency, God forbid, it's hard to be fully committed, right? It's hard to really be driving a business along. So it's no benefit to anybody to have anybody at half the fold or not fully there with their mental health.
That's totally true. I mean, there's a time when you have to go through with something no matter what, mm-hmm. and you got to just kind of fake it. Mm-hmm. But ideally, you're surrounded by people that you know. There are also moments when you don't have to fake it, and I think that's just a balance, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you guys at Dollop have such an incredibly good culture of fostering a good mental health environment that it probably makes it easy for people to stay in a good environment.
I think we try. I think it's just, to us, to me, it's just normal stuff. It's not, it's not like I'm following a trend of what everyone is going through and going, and being a part of. It's just, for me, I try to run my business like it's a life, like it's our life. And so therefore that stuff is natural. I think it's just more natural to us. That's all.
Yeah, no, that makes sense here. Yeah. So tell me what it's like being the boss. The buck stops with you in many ways.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I'm trying to. Funny enough, while I say I'm very supportive of everybody, I'm also trying to, at this very moment, be able to just take a little bit of a step back and be a little bit less hands-on and focus on development more. It's hard when you have 150 plus employees and you want to go into every shop and talk to everybody and be there for everybody and get a text from everybody. I love that part of the job. However, it gets hard with growth. So I'm steadily creating the appropriate layers in between me and sort of our everyday normal regular employee, just because I can't succeed at being there for everybody. I would fail. And so therefore, I'm trying to get more upper management and have more resources for our employees while still being a friendly face and still being able to work from the cafes and meet people at the cafes and be, I want to be, sorry, I could ramble about what it feels like to be a boss all day. It's funny. Yeah. I want to be the best. I want to be everyone's friend. I don't want to be any different. Because I love being in cafes. I like working in cafes behind the counter too. But I can't be how could I be a successful, how could everyone text me that a cooler is broken or that a lock is broken or that we're out of medium cups? How could I do that at the scale? Yeah. So I'm trying to create some rubber in between so that I can just so I can focus on the future and more importantly on the past, on fixing and coming back and looking backwards on what we're doing and always being better. So I can't do that if I'm totally engrossed in the day to day.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
But that's not exactly what you asked. But I like being the boss. I like what I do. I like that being responsible for the culture. From again, my belief system is the company is by default in many capacities the company's belief system. Like I'm pretty liberal. The company is generally pretty liberal, and I like all people from all over the universe and all shapes and sizes, and so we're accepting of all people, and so it's pressure, but it's also very positive for me and very rewarding because I like where I work. I like the people that come into my world because of that.
Absolutely. And your coffee shop definitely gives all of them that I've been to give off those warm, welcoming feelings.
Good.
Exactly how I feel with you right now.
Glad to hear that.
Can you talk a little bit about like the development that's going on with Dollop at the moment? Are you expanding past 19 into the 20s of locations, or is it more of going back, looking at how you guys came through COVID and whatnot, and trying to be better? Where is your time these days spent most?
I think it's both. I think there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and there always is if you're a business owner on perfecting what you've already done, doubling back, making sure that everything's healthy. I think there's a lot of that. For us, we're still only at about 65% back sales revenue wise from COVID. So there's still work to be done. I have great landlords and really helps and it makes coming back from what everyone's experienced. It makes it possible without the relationships that I have, and I'm just super lucky to know the people I know. We'd be closed. You know what I mean? We'd be closed, and I think a lot of people are in our shoes. So with that said, I'm always open and listening to opportunities. You can't not. I'm opportunistic by nature. I want to grow, but we're at a point where it's sort of it's not do or die time, but it's for us, for Dollop, and I think for a lot of folks in our shoes, we have to prove that we're past COVID in order to really look forward.
And so what were some of those challenges in COVID? I'm sure a lot of businesses have the same challenges, but what were the biggest challenges you guys found at Dollop during COVID?
Well, it's hard to answer that on one level. To some degree, the initial challenges were, will the managers come back to work? And how do I make sure they want to come back to work? And then it's, well, wait a minute, it's not about what I want anymore. It's what they need to do, because if we don't come back to work, we're not gonna make it. So there's this, at first it's this fine line of back to the mental health things. Like, are we all ready to do this? Are we all ready to be a part of and to put ourselves out there and to be masked coffee servers? It's crazy, right? However, if we don't open, we're going to close. We're going to go out of business. So at first, it's just people and how do we do what we do, right, as people? Then people start coming back, and it's so slow, right? Business is so slow. And again, this is not super unique to Dollop, but we're talking about shops that did $2,000 to $3,000 a day, doing a couple $100 a day now, and it's in the most awkward capacity you could ever imagine it, right? And from my perspective, am I putting people's life in danger right now? Like, what am I doing? Should I even be open? Should people even come in from neighborhoods and be in these rooms together? Am I a bad person am I putting business first by doing that? So there was a lot of self-reflection, and just sort of, those are some of the challenges. I don't know how much business owners talk about that, but it was very, very confusing. Then we start getting back into it. Sales are coming back to some degree, not to normal, but closer. We all pivoted to this mobile ordering thing. Do we want to keep doing that? We reduced our food prepared program just to make it quicker, because we were short staffed. Do we want to bring food prepared back? Do our hours expand? These are some of the hundreds of challenges that the hospitality industry faces and still are facing. And now we have food costs skyrocketing, labor higher than ever. Not so much in Chicago with the inflation panic, but we're sort of in a little bubble here. Obviously, people are still spending money for now, right? So all these challenges continue to be a serious part of every business owner's sort of mindset right now. It's not over. You know what I mean?
Oh, certainly not.
Yeah.
I'm sure as a business owner, you're never out of the woods.
Never. Yeah, never.
But wow, it sounds like moment COVID hits, everything gets thrown out. Like you are back to like the foundational questions of like, how do I get my employees in here to do what we're going to do?
Totally.
To the business.
Totally. It's back to basics, and you figure out that you can doubt yourself in ways you never thought possible.
Yeah.
That's what you go through.
In some ways you feel like, oh, I thought I had made it past this point.
Totally.
Yeah.
And making everybody happy is just it's a sick joke of a goal at this point, right? Because you can't.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. And you also have to make the right choices for yourself, your family, everyone who works for you, everyone in your communities, all at the same time without a second to choose. Right? It sounds dramatic. It sounds like a rock movie. It's not, though. It's just like, but that's what it is. It's crazy.
It's the reality of being a business owner. So I know that we have to think of people's safety over everything, but people really need places like Dollop to be able to go into and have some sense of normal. And sometimes I'm glad you made it and opened your stores back up again. What kind of people does Dollop look for when they're bringing someone into shops to work? What types of employees have you found to be your most successful ones?
Well, Samantha, who's my sort of longest upper management person, kind of our general manager, she makes fun of me all the time because I hired probably 1 through 70. I hired myself, and my interviews are like super notorious for essentially. It's like you sit down and I'm like, hey, how's it going? And I look at you, and you look at me, and I'm like, I know already. I'm just like, okay. It's like, yeah, this person's going to work here already. Mm-hmm. And then I just try to, we just talk. I ask a bunch of fairly basic questions. I'm like, I think you'd be a good fit here. And they're like, okay. That's it. Okay. And I'm like, that's it. Let's do this. Or I'm like, yeah, I don't know if this is going to I don't know if it's going to work for us or not. And so I'm very much, I want people to work for Dollop who are super easy to talk to, who, know how to not make a big deal out of nothing, and the coffee background and is less important. Hospitality background is very positive. It's a plus. Whether that's retail or any sort of person-to-person work experience. However, if you're just ready to go and you haven't done it, but you're personable and you're realistic about what working at a company means to, for yourself and your life, I'm in. I'm not delusional. I don't hire I'm not like, it's the first day of your career at Dollop.
Sure.
To me, coffee is very transitional, just like people who live in neighborhoods are, and therefore you just have to, when you're in there, when you're working, just enjoy it, get the most out of it. I think that's the best way to say it. If I think you can get the most out of the job and still and enjoy the job, you should work there. Okay. It's that simple for us, right? If you want a career in coffee, I can provide that as well. And there are upper management, leads and roles. However, it's like from a basic standpoint, like, can you be in a room with people and figure out a way to enjoy yourself and get the most of it? If you can, if you're going to be looking at the clock, and if you're going to be resenting, you can't separate that. You can't find. For some people, it's a break. Working in retail. So for some people, it actually is like, I get to come and just focus on my job and get away from my life.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, the point is like, be in the room, be present, get the most out of it, and leave not hating yourself. And you can work for Dollop. What a strange pitch.
No, it makes sense though.
Yeah.
You're looking for people who come in, want to be there, because that makes the customers feel good.
Yeah.
When I go and grab coffee and the person's like happy, attentive, and on top of like what my needs are for the 3 minutes I'm in the store.
Yeah.
It really it brightens my mood for the rest of the day.
Yeah, I don't want it to be artificial.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to just be yourself.
Yeah, you can't fake that.
Yeah, you're in a moment in time in your life. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Work is just a moment in your time in your life. You should never put it outside those lines. When you do, who knows what can happen to you? You know what I mean? What are you getting yourself into? It's like,
yeah, be overly consumed by
exactly. Yeah,
your coffee job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just no point. Yeah.
So Dollop is growing incredibly. Have you guys found yourself getting into any community outreach projects or nonprofit work or anything along those lines?
Yeah, I mean, we always we try to be as generous as we can when we get requests for the basic donations and of course,
sure.
We've done, throughout the years we do fundraisers for tragedies and natural disasters and all that stuff. I think right now what we're really focused on in that arena is sustainability. I think right now I'm finally realizing the impact that a 20 shop chain has from a sustainability standpoint. So we're focused and we're committed on we're doing some pretty bold stuff right now. Internally, we're on October 5th or 6th, we're launching our new home compostable coffee bags. So if you buy a retail bag of coffee, you come in, you buy coffee for your house to grind at home, that bag's home compostable. You can literally throw it in your compost at home, which is new. I mean, I've seen it, but I haven't seen it enough, and that's for sure. So that's going to launch. We're also committed to we're going to go all compostable with everything you get from a Dollop. So if you get a pastry bag, a cup, anything that you take away that we produce, it's all going to be compostable. And we're doing composting in our shops. And some of the data that we're receiving from what an impact that will make at the 20 location level in our neighborhoods is staggering. So we're going to be launching this green page from our website at dollopcoffee.com, and it's going to be able to show and actually track what we're sort of doing for these neighborhoods. And we're hoping that by partnering with Waste Not, for example, who's a compost company, we're hoping that we can not only just make that impact at our shops, but also in our communities, and we can encourage people to compost and sort of be there for people as a resource in that capacity too.
Oh, absolutely. That sounds wonderful. I mean, it's always good to get green, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's time. It's sloppy for us not to at this point. It's, you know what I mean? It's just it's irresponsible. So we're pushing pretty hard into that universe right now.
Yeah, I gotta imagine the moment that you realize that you're like, oh, we could be doing some compostable stuff here, and then every other coffee cup that goes out, you're just like, oh wow,
yeah,
that could have been
totally
better waste.
Well, I also
better thrown away.
Right, I know what you mean, and this is not a competition. What I'm hoping is that when we can show other local cafes and companies in town what the transition is, and we have the resources built in now. It's like we have a sustainability director. Jacob is our sustainability director.
Nice.
And there are people that believe in sustainability to a point that they're going to map this out for us. And they're going to create the roadmap. It's not that much more expensive. There's a cost, and some of that is inevitable. However, I think it's like, you're going to pay for something. What are you paying for? And so to a degree, right? So you'll spend a couple cents more. I think I know I will. A couple cents more. There's always, everyone's got their limit, but
that's okay.
Yeah, but I think it's the right time. So I hope other coffee shops see what we're doing and say, hey, can we have the contact for your compostable cups? Of course you can.
Yeah,
do
absolutely.
it. Please be the second coffee chain in Chicago to go all green if you can. You know what I mean? Like, and then be the 10th after that. So it's not about I don't want to hog this. I want to share it.
Yeah, absolutely. Show that it can be done.
That's right.
Absolutely. That's right. So one last question.
Yeah.
How do you take your coffee?
If I'm drinking coffee straight, it's black coffee because. Jim, our coffee director, and Emily at production, they work very hard to really, really bring great coffee to us. And so I want to taste it. I want to taste it. If I want a more yummy drink, I'll probably drink like a oat milk mocha.
Okay.
Like I'll go with like a mocha with oat mostly. Like I'm a big oat fan now. I used to do the soy when I was younger, because I'm pretty old. But soy was like the main alternative milk, and now it's oat. So it's like oat mocha, or like give me like a pour over of some like of single origin.
Okay, absolutely, that sounds good.
Yeah,
I mean, you go get some coffee.
Yeah, I just made myself thirsty.
Well, thanks for joining us, Dan, and thank you for listening to this episode of Bridging Chicago podcast. Be sure to visit us at www.bridgingchicago.com to check out all of our episodes and find ways to connect with our guests. You can also visit us on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, where our handle is Bridging Chicago. And be sure to visit Dollop Coffee at dollopcoffee.com, on Instagram and Twitter at Dollop Coffee Co., C-O, or one of their many locations around the city. Again, Dan, thank you for joining us today.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Bridging Chicago, as produced by the SATC Solutions Center. Nothing contained in this podcast shall constitute financial, investment, legal, and/or professional advice. No professional relationship of any kind is created between you and the podcast host or guest. You are urged to speak with your financial, investment, or legal advisors before making any investment or legal decisions. Furthermore, the opinions expressed in this podcast are not necessarily the opinions of SATC Solutions Center, SATC Law, or any of its employees. This podcast is created by the hosts and guests' individual capacities. All opinions on this podcast are or have been rendered based on specific facts, under certain conditions, and are subject to certain assumptions and may not and should not be used or relied upon for any other purpose, including but not limited to, or use in or in connection with any investment purposes or legal proceeding.